Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So we are continuing our exciting journey into the Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. We are on Canto 2, Chapter 9, Answers Citing the Lord's Version, and we are on, I believe, text number 14. And this is where Shukadeva Goswami begins to explain to Maharaj Parikshit the features, both planetary features and the spiritual features on the Vaikuntha planets, and the forms and the bodies of the inhabitants of Vaikuntha planets. And so that's where we are. And we're in text number 14, which has no purport, so we may have to go to the next one. It's a short purport. So these are descriptions, and but very important to understand that there's another world beyond this world. This world is not the whole thing, by any means. It has a lot of shortcomings, like birth, death, disease, and old age, and all kinds of problems. Anxiety. But in the spiritual world, the anxiety is gone, reduced to nil, because everyone there is in pure consciousness, and everyone's body there is in pure consciousness. So the interactions are in pure consciousness. So let me read back a little bit. The inhabitants, this is text 11, the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble the lotus flower, and their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features are attractive. They are just the age of growing youths, and they have 4 hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces and ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Some of them are effulgent like the coral and diamond in complexions, and have garlands on their heads, blooming like the lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated, belonging to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. And the ladies also are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions. And all these combined together appear like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. And we are on text number 14. That's today's verse. Shurya Yachara Rupena Yugra Gaya Padayo Karatu Manam Bahuda Vibhutibihi Premkam Shutaya Kushmat Kusumat Karna Nugaya Vigi Yamina Priya Karma Gayati. Priya Karma Gayati. Priya Karma. Karma activities. Priya Karma. Activities of the dearmost. Gayati. Singing. They're singing of the activities of the dearmost. Translation. The goddess of fortune, in her transcendental form, is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant companions, but also she is engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. That is such a beautiful description of the goddess of fortune. I'll read again. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she is not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant companions, but also she is engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. What are her constant companions? Maidservants. And text number 15, because there's no purport on that one. Dadasha Tachra Kila Savatram Patim Shriya Patim Jagapatim Jagat Patim Sunanda Nanda Prabha Larhan Nadibi Swa Parshad Gra Parshad Gra Pari Sivitam Vibhum. Lord Brahma, he saw in the Vaikuntha planet of the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, the Lord of the universe, and who is served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabhala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. We don't know too much about Lord Vishnu's immediate associates. Our focus is on Gokula and Krishna and his associates. So we don't know too much about that. But we learn a few things right here. We even have their names. Nanda, Sunanda, Prabhala, and Arhana, immediate associates. And purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. When we speak of the king, it is naturally understood that the king is accompanied by his confidential associates, like secretary, private secretary, aide de camp, ministers, advisors, etc. So also when we see the Lord, we see him with his different energies, his associates, and confidential servitors, etc. So the Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all living entities, the Lord of all devotee sects, and the Lord of all opulences, the Lord of sacrifices, and the enjoyer of everything in his entire creation, is not only the Supreme Person, but also he is always surrounded by his immediate associates, all engaged in their loving transcendental service to him. Hare Krishna. The Lord of all devotee sects. So it's not just one camp. Apparently because there's in the Vaikuntha planets there are different forms of the Supreme Lord, and each planet has I'm assuming, which I've read, that each planet has uniqueness in the form of God that in that particular planet. Lord Nisringadev has his planet. Varaha has his planet. And there are so many other planets, Ramachandra. So there are, I guess you could call them different devotee sects. So that would maybe be the explanation of that. And but he is the enjoyer of everything in his entire creation, in all those different forms, enjoying the loving service of his loving servitors. They're all engaged in loving transcendental service to him. But that's the norm. See, that's the norm. Loving transcendental service is the norm in the spiritual world. Here, it is not the norm. In the material world, it's rare, very rare, for someone to be so surrendered to Krishna that they're literally immersed in transcendental loving service even in this material body, in this material world. But in the spiritual world, that's the norm. Everyone's engaged in transcendental loving service. What's the problem? There is no problem. The problem in the material world is the modes of material nature which contaminate the consciousness of the living entity and his endeavor to render pure, loving, transcendental service. The modes of nature are always attacking, especially the sadhakas, the devotees who are trying to get to that pure platform of goodness. They become attacked by the modes of material nature and they have some troubles. They fall down. They have different kinds of difficulties. Because the modes of material nature are still strongly working on them. Strongly working. Their desires are influenced by the modes of material nature. But if by some good fortune one can become freed from the modes of material nature, even with in this material body, in this material world, one can become situated in pure, transcendental loving service. But it's the rare event. It's not the norm like in the spiritual world. Everyone's engaged in transcendental loving service. There's no problems like we have here in this material world. The modes of nature create problems for the sadhakas, those who are trying to become liberated from this material energy. So we want to understand there is a clear distinction between the spiritual atmosphere and the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere is strongly contaminated by, I use the word contaminated because Prabhupada uses that word too, about the modes of material nature and how they influence the desires and the activities and they embarrass the living entity tremendously in this material world, but making them, particularly forcing them to perform activities which are, I would say, regretful. So that's the nature of this world. So to come to the point of pure loving devotional service in this world is a rare occurrence. So the spiritual world is just waiting for those who want to enter into that atmosphere. If one is not particularly somehow entering into that atmosphere while in this material world, surely one will enter into that atmosphere if the desire is there, as upon leaving this material body and leaving the modes of material nature behind. No more trouble from those. So this is the most important thing to understand, is the clear distinction between the material world and the spiritual world. So we want to keep our eyes open, or keep our heads filled with Krishna's pastimes, and therefore enter into that spiritual atmosphere of pure loving devotional service. Preferably right now, but if it doesn't happen right now, then certainly at the point of leaving this material body. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.